Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank you all for coming so that we can have some open dialogue about what is going on. This is the second in a series that our city has put together so that residents can come. This series, and you'll see a couple more coming after with the other commissioners in different districts, is regarding animal control. And this is a chance for you to get to know who's working in enforcement services, animal control. It is time for you to ask questions. I'm sure there'll be a couple of interesting topics coming up. We have Mr. O'Grady here, who is working with enforcement services and animal control, if you've not met him yet. I am Dana McCool. I am the commissioner for District 4. I have some of my cards over on the table, and I am always available via phone or email to answer your questions, listen to your concerns, and help out wherever I can. So much like you, I am going to sit and let Mr. O'Grady take over, and I'm going to ask that during the meeting, if you have questions when it's question time, if you will, come up to this microphone here to make your question known or your statement. As we record this and transcribe, other residents will hear this also. So come right up here to this microphone, and if you have any questions, I'll be available afterwards to answer as well. So, Mr. O'Grady.
Thank you, Commissioner. Once again, my name is John O'Grady. I'm assisting the City of Deltona with the first task is code enforcement services, which includes animal control. And what we want to do is have a series of informational meetings on animal control to let you, the public, know this is exactly what we do. This is the direction we want to go in, and we want to hear from you as we look at best practices, what best practices fit the City of Deltona best, because the animal control officers are your officers, and we want the best practices in the City of Deltona. So we're going to go through an informational slideshow. Everybody's going to be able to speak, and then at the end, we'll do questions and answers. We hope we answer a few questions along the way here. We've tried to anticipate everything. And as I look out into the audience, I have met with several of you individually or as a group. You know, and we can continue to do that going forward, you know, as we come up with more questions and answers. We're not going to solve all the issues today, but this is a start. And, you know, our timeline is to give the city manager by the end of July a best practices for animal control and all the programs that it oversees. So I'm going to start, and we have the first slide right up here. Basically, the mission of the Enforcement Services Division, which includes animal control, is to enforce state statutes as well as city ordinances that are voted on and enacted by your city commissioner. The animal control officers are your enforcement services officers. So once again, looking at efficiency and effectiveness in personnel, we have several roles, but one of those roles is animal control. Every officer is state certified or more. And we encourage these officers to continuing education, whether it's be a specialty in dogs or a specialty in cats or specialty in cruelty to animals, negligence, et cetera, those type of things that we can then take advantage of these officers as we go out to these different cases. The last one here is, once again, I went over it, the certified officers and the programs that we've enacted over the past 10, 15, 20 years that the city, 25 years that the city's been in existence. But it is time, as is everything in life, it is time to take a step back to see what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, and how we can improve going forward. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Gibson. Thank you.
morning. My name is Officer Gibson. I've been working with the city since 1998. I started as a, I'm sorry, I guess I gotta stay on the mic here. I started in 1998 as a permit clerk. I've been working with the city approximately 23 years, and I'm now one of the current supervisors for animal control, code enforcement, and solid waste. What I'm going to try to do is give you a brief history of our animal control with the city of Deltona. I guess I'm going to have to find. Okay. As you can see, the city of Deltona, we incorporated in 1995. The residents wanted a higher level of governmental service in the community. So what the city did was, in 1997, it established its own code enforcement department. So animal control was combined with code enforcement in 2004. This allowed the department to provide a more efficient service for the residents of Deltona. So we have a chart here of our staffing history. As you can see, in 1997, we only had 2 animal control officers for a population of approximately 57,000 residents. You'll notice an increase of the animal control officers in 2008. Keep in mind that when we combined code enforcement in 2004, this will explain the increase in officers that we have now in 2008. But then you'll see a decrease to come up in 2010. That's because of, if you remember, in 2008, we had the recession. So we're currently staffed right now with 12 officers, in which you can see the population has increased quite a bit, up to approximately 94,000 residents of the city of Deltona. So at this time, I'm gonna have Danny Ryan come up, and he'll continue with the presentation.
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Danny Ron. I am the Customer Service Supervisor for the Department of the Building and Enforcement Services. If you happen to call in a complaint, City Hall, that's the section I'm in charge of. We have a lot of section in that portion, but today we are going to talk about animal control. I've been working with the city since 2003. I was an animal control officer, code enforcement officer for 15 years, and doing my current position for the last 2. This first slide here that we have is numbers. Animal control comes in the 3rd top code enforcement type of case that we deal with. You can see the numbers from 2019 to 2020. The numbers have dropped some for animal control, and I'm thinking that was due to COVID, yes, and a lot more people, homeowners were home, residents were home during that time, so less animals were out loose, I'm hoping. But everybody's back to work this year, and I'm thinking those numbers are gonna go back up. Yeah, so there's a 3rd category on the list on there. These are some of the categories that we, animal control deals with when we do receive a complaint or the officer initiates a complaint. Animal at large, nuisance animal, cruelty, found animals, prohibited animals, deceased animals, wellness check. And we'll talk more some of these categories here later on. So, how does a responsive city government provide animal control services for the benefit of the entire community? As you can see, those numbers are pretty high. We want to make sure we address all complaints. We do it reactively. Reactives are complaint-driven. On the left-hand side, these are different methods for you to submit a complaint. The only one we forgot to put on there is walk-in. We also get walk-ins here at City Hall. But we do have an animal control hotline, 386-878-8701, and this is during Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Our main dispatcher, which is Patty Mullins, she is here also. She's going to be part of our presenters. She handles those calls. We also have other staff members that back her up throughout the day. It is a busy line, but please, if you have a complaint, just leave a message. Now, if it's an emergency, guess what? Please call Sheriff's Office, because they also receive calls through the Sheriff's Office. It's just not just our department that takes the calls. You can also call through the Sheriff's Office. We have an app, it's called Deltona My 311. For Android users, iPhones, you can use that app to put a complaint in. We have a city website, deltonafl.gov, throughout the city website, different locations to put a complaint in. We have a direct email. It's acontrol@deltonafl.gov. Last couple of years, we've been utilizing a Facebook page for lost animals for the city of Deltona. The animal control officers, they post found dogs, found animals on this page, okay? And it's been very helpful, and I'm thinking that's another reason those numbers have gone down when it comes to animal complaints. Now, also, being proactive. The officers are out there throughout the day. They can initiate if they see a violation out in the community when it deals with the animal control. So it's not just reactive by complaints. The officers are out there being proactive. Some of the types of cases that we deal with are aggressive animals. When it comes to dogs, we want to make sure we find that dog, and we want to make sure it's secured before we leave that area. Even if the officer might have to call for a backup for another officer to help them respond to capture that dog, we'll make sure the community is safe when it comes to this. And we're hoping there's not a bite doesn't occur. If it was a bite, there are other procedures to this. We would have to report this to the health department via a report. Nuisance animal. I had a lot of these when I was doing my, when I was an animal control officers, after hours. Snake calls inside houses, poisonous snakes. We live in Florida. We have a lot of wildlife here. Coyotes are in the area, bears. Now, we don't go out for them, but we definitely forward that information over to the Florida Wildlife Commission, who handles wildlife. Now, if it's a snake call on the property or inside the house, we'll definitely go out there and get it for you, and we'll remove it from inside the structure. Poison snakes. We have a location, we have a snake guy up in, just before you get up to Daytona, Serpentarium, and we take our poisonous snakes there. We deal with animal cruelty, and it could be a very basic case for cruelty, like it's state law requires, if you have an outdoor a pet, you have to have provided shelter if it's at any time, and water at all times. And most of the time we leave, the notice that we leave is called the door hanger, the basic notice, a list of different violations on the other side with the time, with the reinspection date. Here we made a flow chart. We try to do the best we can, but when we initiate the complaint, we got the complaint, we dispatch the officer, we enter the case for the officer. Let's just say they get out there, there's not a violation, they'll close out the case. If there is a violation, let's just say it was a stray dog that we wind up finding, we'll impound, we'll take a photo of that dog, we'll scan it. All the vehicles animal controllers they have scanners now, and we'll scan to see if it has a chip. Hopefully the chip has current information, and so we can reach out to the animal owner. If no owner is found, we will transport that animal to the Humane Society, local Humane Society. Let's just say we did find the owners. We'll work with them, return the animal to the owner. Now, if we see a situation that we might need a follow-up from that point on, we'll give it a reinspection date and let the animal owners, this is what we require you to do, and this is your time to get this corrected. We go back to the correction date. If everything was taken care of, we're done. We close out the case. If not, we can go further and either via citation or present this case to the special magistrate. Some other type of prohibited animals, we don't allow them. We don't, and wildlife being as pets, we don't allow them unless you have a license by the Florida Wildlife Commission, by the state. I don't know if some of y'all heard about a tiger in Texas being a pet. Yeah, we don't allow that. So that's good. But yes, Florida Fish and Wildlife regulates all those rules. When it comes to deceased animals, we get them throughout the day. Yes, they get hit by cars or something like that. We'll have an officer go check it out. If it's a domestic animal, we'll scan it, see if it has a collar with a tag. That way we can find the owners. If we can't find the owners, we do send this information to Waste Pro. We have a contract with them to pick up the dead animals. All right, Ms. Angela Myers is coming up next, and she'll continue on with the emergency services and special measures stuff.
Good morning. My name is Angela Meyer. I am currently Administrative Supervisor for Building and Code Enforcement Services. And I've been with the city for 19 years. And I'm also with the special magistrate as his hearing clerk and deal with all the cases related to the special magistrate. So talking about the emergency services, the officers are on call from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. to address emergency calls, and they also take care of cases after hours that are injured animals, aggressive animals, and dog bites. And they can also go out to assist fire and police when requested. Some animal cases have to go to the special magistrate. And an example of that are dogs that are constantly at large, vicious, disturbing noises, not just dogs, or all kinds of animals. And related to noises is if the dog barks over 15 minutes, if it has an affidavit to show that, then they can come to the special magistrate if the violation is not corrected. The process to go to the special magistrate is the officer submit a notice of hearing, and we notify the owner with a minimum of 10 days prior to the hearing. And the magistrate will make his decisions. And if you want to appeal to the decision of the special magistrate, you have 30 days to appeal to the county court. So it means once it's decided by the special magistrate, it's out of our hands. Another type of case resolution, it will be the civil citation. That's when it's issued by the code enforcement officer, and that also can only be contested at the county court. Then the county will schedule a date where they can appear in court to make a decision on that case. Animal life safety cases are all the cases related to cruelty and dog fight. Usually they are reported by the sheriff's office, and our officers will take care of that. So that's what I have to say. Next will be Richard Lovett addressing the future of animal control. Actually, sorry, it's Betty. She's going to address the TNR program.
Thank you, Angela. Okay, so first of all, good morning. For years, I'd like to say that there's been a feral cat issue here in the city of Deltona that's been impacting everyone. And it's also very important to understand that we have to balance the rights of not only the property owners, but also people who care about the community cats and other pets. It's very important for us to get that message out there. We're neither for nor against either program. So how do we as a community address this? By using national best practice standards? First of all, is everyone familiar with the term best practice standards? What that means is we are trying to take in information from other larger metropolitan areas and communities that have implemented practices that are successful. And that is what we are going to currently do now as we move through to audit our TNR program. So trap, neuter, and return or release is the program that the City of Deltona has invested in for several years. It is a program that is managed by volunteers. The goal of TNR is to stabilize the feral cat population. Now, it's very important that everyone understand that city monies do not fund directly, or the city monies do not go directly to volunteers. City monies are given to the veterinary practices through authorized contracts to perform the spay, neuter surgeries and administer rabies shots when needed and other treatments for the animals if it's required for surgery. So your tax dollars do not go to individual volunteers of the TNR program. It's very important that we understand that. There's a comprehensive audit that's going on right now, and we do recognize that both sides of this coin, so to speak, are equally passionate and convicted. Everyone deserves to be heard, and that's why we're here today. So, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to go to the next slide, sorry. So, animal control officers, this is very important. Animal control officers do not get to decide how they perform their duties. They follow the lawful direction of their city managers, city ordinances, state statutes, and city policies and procedures. Moving forward, let's say now that owners are required to obtain pet licenses for all dogs and cats in the city. Valid vaccinations are required for all licenses. So to be very specific, in my position here, I have learned that lots of people don't really know what that means. That means a rabies certificate. A certificate that you would get from the veterinarian who administers the rabies shots. That is what is required to receive an animal license here in the city. And city ordinance does require pet owners to spay or neuter dogs and cats that are older than 6 months. Now I'd like to introduce Officer Richard Lovett.
So looking at this, my name is Richard Lovett. I'm one of the Enforcement Services Supervisors. I've been with the city since 2000. I actually started as an animal control officer. So to sit there and go forward, you always have to go backwards. So as we were looking at our cost figures, we noticed in 2011, 2012, 2013, we were constantly having a rise in tax dollars that we were spending on animals. So the TNR program came along, and to say it's a city program, this is a nationwide, and I don't just say nationwide, this is a country, this is not just in this country. Other countries are also adopting these kind of programs and putting them into practice. So to understand that, that's why we're like, let's go and give this a try. The idea was, and I can tell you from being out on the road, you had 10 cats in the truck almost every single day. The idea was we never saw the numbers going down. So taking them out of the Humane Society, getting them euthanized was not working. So those practices are not working. You need to find a new way that does. So as you can see, by working with the TNR program, we have been able to reduce the amount of fund dollars that we're able to spend on taking animals into humane societies now. So TNR benefits. So going back to that, so if I get one cat on the truck, there is no place in the city for us to house that animal. So now I have to drive that animal over to Daytona Beach. That's a half an hour trip over there. That's a half-hour trip back. That's 1 hour out of the city. They have to sit there. Let's just say they come into line. There's 3 other cities in front of them. They have to wait in line. Just because they have one animal They don't get the bump up. So that's why we figure it's an average of 2 hours every time they leave the city to go over to Humane Society and to get back. So, and every animal you're taking in is costing the residents $90. So the future of animal control. So we said there, what other ways can we use? We've got the TNR program we're working with. We invested in scanners for all the trucks. We put all the scanners in all the trucks so they can scan the animal right away. If there's a chip, we can call and do it right there in the truck. Then we decided, well, let's give all the officers iPhones. They can take pictures of the animals, post them straight to Facebook right then and there. Quicker we get it onto Facebook, on our lost animal pages, quicker we can probably get that animal back, less time it's on the truck. The idea is to reunite the animal as quick as we can. So we're always looking for new ways to try and make that process faster, and we'll use whatever we can. So the future, well, like Patty said, we're going to utilize best practices. And as we're looking at best practices, we're not looking at just what's in here in the county. We're looking statewide. We're looking nationwide. Places that have been doing this for a long time. We're looking at what have you been doing? What are your practices? What works best? How are you handling your problems? Now we're taking that information, yes, and it's not going to work for every area, but we're taking that information and trying to figure out which way would work best for our citizens. So we stated that before, 1 department, 3 missions. So like I say, looking back in the past and being an officer out in the field, when I started, there was 2 officers. So if I was out of the field and I went to Humane Society and an emergency call came in, I'm stuck. I could not get back. So the idea was, how can we be more efficient to give better service to our citizens? And that's why we decided to combine the 3 departments. All 3 departments enforce compliant codes for the city. So it allowed us to put more animal control trucks on the field, to have more backup, to be able to quicken our response out to calls. By doing this, we have been able to be more efficient and be able to have more backup for not only the employees and everything else like that, so the employees have help. So, and we provide this service 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. So, as you can see, here's our current employees that we have with the city right now. All employees have their credentials. 4 employees have more than required credentials for the job, and 1 is a nationally certified animal cruelty investigator. And I'll turn it back over to Mr. O'Grady for question and answers.
Just a couple things I want to point out before we go to the Q&A. One, Ms. Patty Mullins forgot to say that she's the voice when you guys call. And she was on the front line. She sees a lot of this, so we thought it was important to include her because she talks to you and the residents every day. And I want to go back here. One of the things we pointed out in the code enforcement town hall meetings was that we already employ best practices. The best practices were already here when I got here. And so although we are doing a review of what's out there, what's new from technology to practices, your enforcement services department was already doing a lot of that. It just wasn't out there to you. And also I want to point out the personnel up here, besides Ms. Mullins, who just came on a couple years ago, you're talking over 15 years each. So when you have an employee who has that much tenure, 1, they enjoy their job. 2, it's a good place to work. And 3, I will point out, since we're on the animal control side of it, the passion for what they do with animal control when they respond out, because dealing with animals is emotion. There's a lot of emotion that goes into that. It's your pet or it's your neighbor's pet. And so I want us to be cognizant of that as we go to the Q&A. It's important that we have to deal with the facts, we have to deal with statutes, we have to deal with ordinances, and weigh both sides going forward. And we completely understand the emotional side of it. And there'll be a couple other things that I'll go over as we go through, but in the question and answer, what I'd like you to do is come up to the microphone so we can hear you, plus this is being recorded, and ask your question. And if I'll probably point to one of the supervisors to go ahead and answer it. So I will open it up now.
Hi, my name is Alma Lancy. I've lived in Deltona for 27 years. What I'd like to see the city do is enforce the ordinances, mainly of dogs and cats. In my case, it's mostly cats that run at large. I have found and talked to people who have these cats, and they think it's the right of a cat to roam wherever they want to roam, which in my case happens to be my yard. And when we first moved here, the city would do something about the cats. But later on, we've been told they won't do anything, that they refer us to the trap and release people, gave them our name, it's been years, they never call, but that doesn't stop them from roaming. It stops them from reproducing, maybe, but it doesn't do a thing. Before, the city used to provide cages that we could borrow or have them delivered to our property, and the cats were apprehended, and they weren't on. I mean, my neighbor used it years ago, and for a long time, we didn't have this problem. But I have new neighbors and new cats. So I just like to see that, and this isn't going to happen when you're out on patrol. I have a Ring doorbell, and I can show you every night which cat has been in my yard, because that picks it up. I'd just like the city to maybe go back to giving us cages to harmlessly apprehending these cats, that they no longer, and I can show you the holes where they dig too in my front garden. And I'd just like to see the city do more for the ordinance that's right there, ordinance number 14-2121, running at large. And I said the owners of the pets have a very different attitude. And we also have a possum. And I know she's told me she feeds him and he sleeps on her front porch.
A possum?
A possum, yeah.
So I'll answer the first part of it. Thank you very much. So we are in the process, right, of looking at the ordinances, looking at best practices, and what we can do. And a large part of that is, and we have re-engaged more fully with TNR and the volunteers, is the education component. So when these complaints come in, our animal control officers will start going out there, doing assessment, looking at the ordinance, and then the plan is to bring TNR in, and we've been doing that, but we're going to start doing it a little bit more. Bringing TNR in not only to educate the cat owners, but also to educate the other people that may have issues with a cat in their yard, and looking at best practices. How can we prevent this from happening? How can we enforce the ordinance in a humane manner? And you're right, making the owners of the pets responsible to take up after. And so that will be the next point I want to make is we've had a good relationship with TNR. It's always been under the city auspice. of control. But going forward, it'll be closer to the city and with oversight and management. Working with Mr. Peters, the city manager, he has a clear vision on where and what he wants the TNR program to be based on best practices. So I'm hoping, once again, by the end of July, after these and after these meetings, and after meeting with numerous other people individually or in small groups, that we will come out and we will give a good plan to the city manager to move forward. And I just want to reiterate, we have a lot of the best practices in place already. Your city volunteers, your city employees are doing a great job. We just need to bring it to the next level. We need to go from, as they say, good to great, and that's what we want in Deltona. Next question.
Hello, Dorelis Navas, again. First of all, I want to say thank you to Miss Patty. She's always been very awesome. Every time I call, I appreciate it. Everything that she has done for my family, it's very appreciated, Miss Patty. Thank you so much for your time. I would like any staff member or any TNR volunteer that is here today to tell my son that is sitting right back there that his life and his health is less valuable than these animals. So if anybody will want to do that, I will appreciate it, because that's how I feel. I feel that his life, his health, and my family's life and health is less valuable than these animals. Mr. O'Grady, you know I have sent you hundreds of papers and everything that I see. You know, I ask to sit down to see, this is what I would like to see. This is what I would like the people to understand and to know, that we have a pet's owner, which is right there, responsibility to leash your animals, to make sure that they are vaccinated, to make sure that they are under your control at all times. It is not okay for your pet to go to my house. I don't have a feral cat problem. I don't. It's a pet's problem. It's my neighbor's cat that go into my yard. I have spent hundreds of dollars on trying to deter these animals because apparently they like me. That's what I was told. So, yeah, the city might be saving money, but it's passing the bill to the residents. Mr. Collar went in front of special magistrate and he proved it that these animals went in his attic, $600. We're talking about car crash. We're talking about catio, screen porch damage. So the city's saving money, but then it's passing the bill to the resident. So that should not be okay. You know, I really don't understand. I think that we have very good ordinances that I have to follow. I have 3 animals. They are vaccinated, they're microchipped. I spend hundreds of dollars to make sure that they are in my yard. I have 3 labs. So I love my animals, and I will do whatever it takes to make sure that they are under city guidelines, to make sure that if they escape, they're microchipped and they can come back to me. So I think the education process has to be to these pet owners that don't understand they are city guidelines. I don't think we have a feral cat problem, because those animals don't go to you. They will not approach you. These animals come to me. My husband is outside smoking and they come to rub on his legs. That's not a feral cat. So I'm not gonna sit here forever because I already sent you hundreds of emails and
thank you for that. I read them and I educate myself and the personnel, so.
I really appreciate your time doing all of this.
Going to your point, and thank you very much, but going to your point, and you hit it as this other resident over here did, it's not necessarily the feral cat TNR program, so we'll move that over and we'll put it where it needs to be on the pet owner. So we are in the process, and once again, so the volunteers are important as well, because they have the knowledge base that we're learning, so we can actually work together. So our plan is, and as you know from Mr. Kohler in this past magistrate hearing, we did bring some residents in front of the magistrate for a nuisance cat problem. And I just want to leave it at that. There's a lot of underneath there that we're working through. But
Yes.
the magistrate did make some great points, and I saw your email, and yes, the city owns the TNR program. It's our program. We're responsible, we're liable, and we're going to implement best practices. But going back to your point, we need to know the owners of those cats, of the pets, and we will go out and educate them. As you said, we will start with educating them, and then going to your point, if education does not work, then we do apply the ordinances. And that goes for everything enforcement services does, whether it's code enforcement, solid waste, or animal control. We go out there, we want compliance. We don't want to charge somebody $25 a day. We don't want to go out there and use punitive measures. We want compliance, and we're all in this together. So it's best practices, but if you don't want the neighbor's pets on your yard, you have rights, and we need to educate those neighbors and use best practices to keep them out of your yard as much as possible. So yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. And that was my question, and you answered it. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day.
Yes. Any other questions? Oh, we got right here first, and then right here, okay, and then you, and then you.
I do, but I'd like to hear what the
Hang on,
ladies
can we
have to
bring
say
the mic to
first.
you?
Thank you. Anybody want to talk? Oh, okay, that's better.
And we'll get Wendy to help out here.
Well, my only complaint is I had been feeding a stray cat probably for at least a year. He was kind of wild in the beginning, and but he gradually got to be very friendly, and suddenly he wasn't showing up. So I waited a couple of weeks and then checked in the neighborhood and found out he had been hit by a car and was still alive but was severely injured. So the person called 911. They told her to call animal control, who came, took the cat. He was still alive, and then they left with him. So, and this was all a couple of weeks after I had not seen him. So the next day I came right over here because I knew you had an animal control service, and there was nothing recorded. I thought when animal control came and had anything to do with any of the animals that they automatically recorded something. Nothing was ever recorded. And I just wondered why, if they still are supposed to record every time they pick up an animal, whether it's dead or alive, the person that hit him with the car kept going, didn't stop. So I just wondered why nothing was ever recorded.
So I don't know either. I would love to know dates and times, and we can get that
Well,
from you.
this is it. It was the middle of February. I didn't have the exact date.
No, we will
but-
get that. We will get that from you after this meeting. But everything should be recorded, even if it's a phone call that goes in to have an animal control officer respond, and we go out there and it's a simple task that doesn't require a long report. It's still recorded in the system. So
Well-
I want to get to the bottom of that, but it should be recorded, and we'll get with you after to get the time frame. Actually, Ms. Patty will get with you because she's the one that would record it. She is the one that would take the initial intake call, and she would dispatch the animal control officer in the computer as well as radio.
Yeah.
And so it should be documented. And then when the officer goes out there, and thank you for the question because it helps us with the process. So the animal control officer goes out there, does what they need to do, and then they have what's called a disposition. Either they took it to the animal control place, the veterinarian, or they returned it to the owner, or whatever else needed to be done. But there should have been a disposition as well.
Well, that's what that was my main concern. Are they always supposed to record when they're called out?
And the short answer is yes.
Yes, because I said if they're supposed to do that and they're not doing it, they should be reprimanded.
Yes.
That's all.
Wendy, over to your, yeah, straight down the row there. Right there, thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Charlene Smith. Okay. No problem.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So I have a few questions, and I will make it short and sweet, but the first one, they touched on in the beginning in the presentation about shelter and that there's a state law about that. The state statute is actually extremely vague on what's appropriate shelter, but our ordinance is very clear, has very clear definitions. And it brings me to a point of a house that I've brought up before that I won't give out the address, but it's very well known that the dog lives outside 24/7. And last year, after the new ordinances were passed with that shelter definition, animal control was out there 9 times in 8 months, and that doghouse did not meet the ordinance. So, but they passed it every time. So I'm just wondering if there's further ongoing training to make sure everybody has that knowledge of what is actually adequate shelter, because our ordinance isn't unique to other municipalities.
Right, and so yes, there is a informational, educational component for animal control officers, but I'll take it one step further. There's also, and as we did in the code enforcement presentation, there are volunteers out there who will gather funds dependent upon the person's finances, that we would go out there and we would put them together so we would have the proper shelter for somebody who kept their animal out there. And we're working on that side of it.
Yeah, I'm aware there's a lot of resources for helping people. This particular case, I don't think funds were the issue, but they were still provided with a proper doghouse. But that's so. My other question is the Volusia County Animal Abuse Database. How often is that used when you get called on cases? Like, is that kind of an automatic thing? If you get called about, hey, a nuisance dog, is that the first thing you check? Is the person potential owner in that database?
We'll see. On a cruelty case, yes, we'll do that research to make sure that, see if they're on there.
But even if it's just say, hey, their dog is always barking or whatever, because it's very possible that that person is banned from owning a pet.
Yeah, we do know, the ones that are in the city, we do know who they are.
Okay.
That are in that abuse registry.
Okay, because I know that gets updated daily, so.
And I can kind of answer your other one on that other one. So yes, in the shelter ordinance, there's 2 different definitions. There's one that says adequate shelter and one that says shelter. In the actual ordinance, the way the ordinance reads, it says adequate food, comma, shelter. It doesn't say adequate shelter. So the problem is we have to enforce what is the definition under shelter.
There's a couple different sections that addresses actually shelter, so that's.
And we're in the process of sitting down, thank you, Richard. We're in the process of sitting down with our city attorney who helped adopt that. And once again, as you can imagine, we're sending officers out there that have a state statute, a city ordinance, and you know, along with best practices. So if they're confused, we need our attorney to go ahead.
Right, I mean, the state statute literally only says cruelty is depriving of necessary sustenance or shelter. That is all it says about shelter. So, I mean,
so it's defining adequate.
Right, yeah, exactly, which is where our ordinance takes that, is defining it. My other question is, and the scope of their job duties is verifying ownership of a loose dog and doing a well-being check on a dog within their duties?
Mark?
Yes, it is. Each time one of the officers goes out to perhaps if they get a dog or whatever, they're supposed to scan it. And that's part of the process of trying to verify, you know, or find out where the dog actually lives at. And what was the second part of your question?
Doing a well-being check.
Yes, we get quite a few well-being checks. So it is part of our job duties to go out and check those.
Okay, because I had a situation a few months ago, and I think I spoke to you, where I had a loose dog that I was holding, and I asked for you to verify ownership of somebody that was claiming that they were the owner, and to also do a well-being check, because it was the second time in less than 30 days that that dog was loose, and it was obvious it was in poor health. And there was a few residents that we were concerned about the care that this dog was getting. And you said that the dog was going to go to the shelter, that you weren't going to get involved in that. So I just wanted to clarify that, because I understood that that was animal control's one of their primary jobs is to verify ownership of a loose dog, and also if somebody has a concern to do a well-being check. Okay. And then also one more, so if you pick up a stray dog and it's an obvious poor health for whatever reason, we don't know why, what is the process for that as far as if an owner is identified at some kind of follow-up?
Richard?
We will do a follow-up. We'll get the information back from, if the vet looks at it at the Humane Societies and gives us back that information on what they say is wrong with it, well, we have that information we can add to the case, but yes, we're going to do a follow-up.
Okay, but even if it's just obvious that the dog is in poor condition,
Well,
do you not take the first step to ask the vet to do an assessment?
we can ask for the vet, but we don't, it only depends on if they get into it and they do it. So we can ask for them to look at the animal and give us a disposition on it, but if we do not receive it from them, I can't go
You're referring to
any
like
further from it.
Halifax generally? This is where it would happen if you impound the dog?
We take the dog, if it's going to be looked at by a vet, yes, we do take it to Halifax.
Okay.
And we use their vet.
So if their vet doesn't look at it, then it's just let go and nothing happens? You don't,
No, we'll do a follow-up. We get a list of each month, everybody that's picked up their animals from the Humane Society.
okay,
So we know who's picked up their animals and who hasn't.
okay,
So if that one's picked up and we do have something on it, yes, we do go back out there.
Okay.
Either way, we verify that they got everything, there's tags and everything, no matter what.
okay. And also our mandatory spay and neuter. I know you don't have it probably off the top of your head, but maybe for future meetings, how many of those have you actually enforced in the last year? Because I've looked at a lot of animal control reports for aggressive dogs or just, somebody's dog is pooping in the neighbor's yard. And I don't see any evidence of any verification if the animal's sterilized or not. And then if it's not, that they're enforcing the mandatory spay neuter, or for that matter, if it's got a city license and rabies tags. A lot of times that's missing from the reports as well.
So you're right, I don't have that answer, but we will have
Okay.
a answer. I got a lot of things flying through my mind
I know.
about that question right there. But yes, I will have an answer
Okay.
for the slide presentation next time, but thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Julie Tirado, and I've been doing TNR for 12 years. I was doing TNR before the city of Deltona adopted that program. And I just want to clarify a couple of things. When you feed a feral cat, like she was doing, for a long time, he's not feral anymore. That was her. Yeah. Well, believe you me, I've been in the city of Deltona for 29 years. And right now, we don't have the problem we had before. And they were being euthanized. And there was no control to it. Right now, I see that we have, I'm going to give you an example. I was feeding behind Publix. When I started feeding there was 58 cats, and that was 10 years ago. There's one cat left. They were all fixed. Cats that live outside, they don't live more than 7 to 8 years, if they're lucky, because usually they get killed by a car. And once you start feeding cats, and they know you're feeding them, they're not feral anymore. Now they're friendly because you're feeding them. They're only feral when they're out in the woods and they have to fend for themselves. Once somebody starts feeding those cats, they're not feral anymore. So people need to understand that. And another problem that we have in Deltona is that people move in with a cat, they're not fixed, then they don't want the cat anymore. Oh, what a nice kitty. Now I don't want it no more because it's big and it's peeing all over my house. They throw them out. Now this cat is going to become feral. Once the cat is out there fending for himself, will become feral. And you can ask that to anybody. Richard?
Right, and one of the points that you made, and it's a best practice, is as people move into rentals, as people move into apartments, we're able to have a other group that, you're signing a lease, and we're working with the apartments, best practices, working with the apartments and these
Or houses,
landlords.
or houses for that
Well,
matter.
houses is a little bit more difficult to go in there and say, hey, as part of your lease, you're bringing in an animal, you're paying an extra price, but you need to show the landlord or the apartment manager the paperwork that the animal you have has been spayed or neutered. So it's a best practice that takes some time, takes some manpower type stuff.
But the TNR works. It has worked in other cities because it brings down the population.
Right.
And if they're out on the street, like I said, I picked up 4 cats not too long ago, back to back, that they got hit. I don't leave them out there. I pick them up and I bury them. I hate leaving them out there because the vultures are going to get to them immediately. So I just go pick them up. It doesn't cost me anything to bury them.
Right.
4 cats back to back in one street. And that's what happens when they're out on the street. They don't live long. And again, people feed them, they become friendly.
Yes.
Not feral no more.
Right.
But the cats in questions, they're all fixed and they are tipped. That's the problem. So now they're city cats. They've been fixed. They belong to the TNR. Usually that's what happens. And again, we have 94,000 citizens in this, families in this city. How many cats do they leave behind when they moved? I mean, a lot of times they just move and they leave the cat behind. A friendly cat. Most of the time we could find them a home.
And that's a great point. And so that is one of the issues that's put on us that now we have to go out and deal with. But we have been dealing with it, and we're just looking for better ways to deal with it. So if we can get it up front where that pet is spayed or neutered, and we have some mechanism to follow up on that, when that horrible person moves out and leaves the pet behind, at least we know until we can catch up with it that it's not going to reproduce and all those other things that we end up finding. But yes, thank you.
That's basically the problem. Thank you.
Hi. My name is Brooke Light. I'm actually not even going to talk about TNR. I know you're all shocked. I actually have 2 other questions, although I do love TNR, and you know that. Patty mentioned it, and then Charlene mentioned it, but with the spay-neuter 6 months and up policies, and I was looking at it on the Municode and stuff, and it does mention about, I guess what you have to do to apply to become a hobby breeder of dogs or cats, but I couldn't really find any details yet that indicate what steps a person would take to be legitimately allowing their animals to reproduce. Because I know there are people who feel a type of way, whatever, but at least they would be doing it within the appropriate parameters as set forth. Is your dog, if your dog accidentally becomes pregnant, what do you do? Stuff like that. If you intentionally let your dog become pregnant, and the whole 6-month-old policy, and of course the veterinary exclusions. I don't expect that answer right now, but it is something that people have asked me, and I've looked into it, and
But I will answer you. So that's part of, and it does follow up on the other questions that were asked. It is working with our city attorney, who, at the direction of the commission, wrote these ordinances. And you're right. So if we need to go deeper, one of the assignments the group over here has is to bring best practices and to bring that to our city attorney and allow her or him, the firm, to go ahead and do that and then present it through the city manager to the commission. Because once again, I would prefer Deltona be a model going forward than be anything else.
Absolutely. This is all about moving forward.
Yes.
I could sit here for hours, we could all complain, but that's not what I want to do.
And thank
but that way, in the future, when people do decide, for reasons, it's their prerogative for their animal to procreate, they can at least be doing it within the appropriate parameters.
Absolutely.
And not exactly related, but when I have a question as far as when people put a statement on the internet that clearly states things such as, I have shot cats with a pellet gun and killed them, I have given cats antifreeze and watched them die, or anything of that nature, a blatant statement, not an illusion, and they post that on the internet underneath an account of their own name, perhaps, what could a person do with that information to at least have maybe, is there a way for that to be verified, to be given to law enforcement? Because we have Florida cruelty statutes, and there are rules and things of this nature, which is why we are all here. So people cannot be posting maybe on the internet they did something horrible. Because I know if I went online on my Facebook page and I said I don't know, punched a kid in the face, that bad things would occur. So somebody, if they could help us understand what steps we can take as citizens.
Yes.
And what happens.
Yes. So if you could send us that link or that
I have all.
screenshot.
Oh, Mr. O'Grady, I have screenshots for you, sir.
Okay. Send it to our animal control, whether it's Mark or Richard, and we will look at it. We will follow up on it. And then when appropriate, we'll turn it over to the sheriff's office. If not appropriate, we will handle it because we have ways that we can handle it internally through our enforcement efforts and our jurisdictional authority. But I will say, once again, part of these programs is working with the city manager to say, yes, as we take these things on, requires bandwidth. And as we get bandwidth, requires personnel and equipment, training that was brought up earlier, which is all what we're working for. And our commission is behind the city manager, who's behind the rebranding 110%. So I'm happy to say, send them to us, and we will address them as we can. Hopefully our bandwidth grows, and we'll be able to, once again, best practices and handle each case appropriately, because you're right, those need to be addressed as animal cruelty.
Thank you, Mr. O'Grady, for your time, and everybody, thank you for everything all of you guys do.
Yes. Yes. Can you come up to the mic, please? Yes. Mm-hmm. Ms. Reslow, if you want to go next, just jump up, and I know you guys are talking about having to go and. Oh, okay, all right.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Evelyn, and I want to thank everyone, particularly Brooke, for having this beautiful TNR program, which, in my case, has served enormously. For I am the owner of a colony, and it has worked wonders, and they're beautiful, and I say that every living thing has the right to live to its fullest without being killed by those who are animal haters. For those, I believe, in God's eyes, will come back in their next life as a feral cat, so they can see for themselves what it feels like. So I have one question for the city of Deltona. If you have all this money to spend on projects that I feel are not necessary, particularly with all this rebuilding of Family Dollars all over the place, why hasn't anyone come up with enough money to build our very own no-kill shelter for these animals through no fault of their own, have been tossed out in the street by owners who have no compassion, and by those who go out there and kill these animals that were no fault of their own? How those people live without a conscience or sleep peacefully at night is beyond me. So yes, the TNR program is working beautifully. I have a beautiful colony of cats, healthy. Just want to say, do more. TNR program is great, must continue, but we can do a little better by providing more for these poor little innocent animals, like I said, through no fault of their own, have to live out there in the wild suffering. That's it.
So thank you, and I will just address we do work with the county on the no-kill as far as the animals that we do pick up and bring to them and those facilities, but the city of Deltona is the biggest city in Volusia County, and talk to your commissioners. All I can say is about a independent facility, but we do work with the county. We do know there's overcrowding, but that's a whole nother subject. And but we will put it in our notes for the commissioners to look at going forward. Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, Ms. Reslow, and then you.
Yeah, good afternoon. My issue is not with trapping, but with abandonment and cruelty by the trappers. Can't something more be done to these perpetrators? They leave the cats in the traps for hours on end, raining, heat. They abandon the animals. They take their animals, put them in the trunk of their car, drive them off somewhere, never to be seen again. And we have issues of people actually screaming at us that I'm going to kill your cats, I'm going to trap your cats, and when they do, they act like it was a good thing that they did, that they abandoned your cats. There needs to be more penalties for these people that do that. Thank you.
Thank you, and that would fall under animal cruelty, and we follow up. Once again, that's complaint-driven, and as you know, we're working with you on your issue on your street, and that is complaint-driven. We go out there, and much like the deputies with the sheriff's office, a lot of time we do mediation between the neighbors, or if there is a violation, we do follow up with an investigation and a citation or whatever is appropriate. But thank you.
Okay. Now, when you talk with these people, why can't you attempt to have them sign an affidavit? I signed an affidavit with my complaint. I don't say, that they have to, but there was no attempt. They'll say they're trapping raccoons. And raccoons have been doing a lot of damage in my area. I've had to have a trapper come out and trap. He trapped 7 raccoons right in my backyard. Yet the trapper in that neighborhood was blaming a couple of cats on tearing up her screen. It was the raccoons. They came on my patio. So they need to be more accountable for how they trap these animals. I have nothing against trapping. If you don't want an animal on your property, that's fine. But don't, have a little compassion for your neighbor.
And once again, that's informational, that we educate the citizens and the residents out there when they have those issues. And we do work with Fish and Wildlife and give them resources for private trappers who have to follow a certain protocol as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Leela. I have a question about colonies in the TNR. Many years ago, I want to say about 10 years ago, I ended up having to employ the use of TNR thanks to a roommate. There's a house on my street that has a colony. I still see kittens to this day, 10 years later. I had the opportunity to sit down with an amazing volunteer with the TNR, and she said something that kind of made sense to me why I'm still seeing kittens to this day. Those who have colonies don't want to register them because they don't want people to know that they have the colonies. Okay. When I was able to research years ago, our ordinance said that colonies were not to be in private homes. That is the majority of what I see, and in my particular neighborhood, there are homes that have colonies. Now, as soon as you say something, they bring up TNR, so that at that point it's hands off. You can't say anything, you can't do anything because it's TNR and they're allowed to do whatever it is they do. I want to know if when things get revamped, when this gets revamped, is that still going to be part of it? And are these people who are running colonies out of their homes going to, what's going to happen with that? Are they still going to be able to, or is it going to have to be shifted somewhere? Because that's not really feasible, to be honest with you, but having a colony in the home isn't feasible or isn't great for the neighborhood.
Right, so that's about 100 questions.
Sorry.
No, but it's awesome, thank you. That you make a great point that we're looking at. I don't have the answer right now, although we do, as far as best practice, we have a stack, but we want to listen to the residents going forward because TNR is at the table with us because you're right, they have some amazing people who have amazing knowledge base that we can sit with and say, okay, there is a quote-unquote colony at this house, and here's the ordinances, how do we do it? And, or it's in the woods, or it's behind, somebody said the Publix earlier. So how do we address these things? What is best practices? What do we want to do in Deltona going forward? What can we present to the city manager that's going to present to the commission that they're going to adopt? So I'm not giving you a non-answer. I'm telling you, you're not unique. We hear that.
I am unique.
You personally, you're unique, but your question and comment. But so going forward, there are a lot of different areas, and I don't want to, any statement I make and it's live is going to be someone's taking that to the bank. So it's hard for me to say colonies are going away, or there's going to be a name change, or a different way of approaching it. So all three may be right, but we haven't gotten there yet. That's what these meetings are about, because there is a lot of good practices out there that we want to bring here.
Right. Okay, I just wanted to,
Nope, thank you.
that in-home colony thing is.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Mary, and I just want to say thanks for having this and everybody's experience, and I was glad to get the information that you stated about going to apartments and leases and getting people registered. And I think that private owners really need to be hit up, because, you know, that's kind of the thing that's raising insurance rates. There's a two parts. That with there's a list of breeds that I can't get a dog. I want to get a dog, but I can't because it's on this list because of bites. And imagine if you did a root cause analysis, it probably can come down to people that are renters, that have animals that are not registered or their owners know about them. So there's that. And then also to enforce the fireworks, because I think that's something that makes animals run off and get lost. Those two things. So thanks, everybody.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
I have a question. I'm being threatened several weeks in a row now. I'm down at the park, CVS, and the people come up. There's this one woman, and I'm sorry I'm crying, but she threatens she's going to kill. She wants all those cats dead. I'm down to 4 cats from about 40 cats. And I had them adopted. Brooks Health take a lot of them. And I don't know what to do with this woman. I don't trust her. I'm afraid she's going to probably shoot me. I know where the street she lives down, and I don't like it. But I want to know what's my right.
So yeah, your rights are, you need to let us know who this person is. You need to have a report. You need to document it. And if it's above us, we will get the sheriff's office involved, because one person cannot threaten another person. One person, you know, I mean, it's assault. So please stay after. And the deputies are here, and you'll be able to talk to Richard Lovett. And if it's above what we can handle, then we will put you in touch with one of the deputies out there. Have you documented this? Have you called the sheriff's office?
No, I have not.
That's your first step.
Okay. And she just keeps coming back, and she lives right on the street, right across from the park. And she drives a beautiful black car, and she just pulls up. I said, please come back here. I says, I have got rid of a lot of these cats adopted. I'm helping. She said, you belong in jail, you MF. She calls me all kinds of names. And I'm afraid, but I've been feeding those cats for 4 years.
Yes.
And I got rid of all but 4.
Okay. Yes, there is something that we can do.
Okay.
So afterwards, please stay after, talk to Mr. Lovett. And once again, if it's above what animal control can do, then we will introduce you and have you talk to a deputy.
And another thing, Brooke's done a great job helping everyone. And as far as the cats go running around, it's not the cat's fault. It's the goddamn human beings that let their cats, they throw them out the car windows to me there, up at the park. Here, you feel like feeding cats? Here's another goddamn one, and they throw them out at me. Baby kittens, Brooke has taken many of them. And it's not the cat's fault, it's the rotten human being.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. So I want to thank everybody for taking the time to come out. We have several other meetings coming up throughout the city. Commissioner McCool.
The other meetings are the same concept.
Exactly, yes.
I would like to thank each and every one of you personally for coming out today, because participation is how we get things done, and if we don't understand what is important to you, we don't know how to prioritize, and we don't know what to do next. So thank you for coming out. A couple of things as your commissioner that I want to make sure of is especially talking about the animals being spayed or neutered before they're returned, chronic escapees that we have a really hard time with, and I would also, people posting about killing animals is unacceptable any way you cut it, it is, and please report that. I think that Brooke has screenshots to send to me. So as you continue on, listen, we have a great staff here. We have opened the lines of communication, and I just, I'm really happy that we can continue like that. So if you have any concerns, email myself, you have my card, or give me a call. I'm always available. I want to thank you, staff, I want to thank you so much. You guys do an incredible job, and the longevity it speaks to that. So thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for getting this put together, okay, Mr. O'Grady, and continuing the dialogue, because we've missed dialogue for a very long time, and each one of you are important. Whatever side of this issue, I think the commonality is that we all care. You know what I mean? We care about property, we care about animal rights, and I've took lots of notes today, and I'll be following up, okay, rest assured on that. So thank you all for coming out. Call me, email me. I'm always here for you, okay? Thank you very much.